said the mother killed her. They've just concocted this whole web of lies around it and made it so complicated and tangled that even to this day, it's just a huge toxic mess. Kate McCann refused to answer many questions. It was
over 40, I believe.
When you actually deal with the mother, her eyes go black. I'm telling you now, they will never, ever convict anyone. Now, there was rumours that the McCanns were swingers.
You believe that Kate and Jerry know what happened?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think the night they said she went missing that it happened. I think it happened the day before.
How's things with you anyway?
Yeah, good. I'm just very, very busy, Very busy.
Yeah, what are you up to?
I've had quite a lot of people approach me. There's so I've been approached by a few TV agencies.
Oh yeah, the big dogs.
Yeah, to do some sort of like true crime, give my opinion thing. And a few charities have approached me regarding helping out with kids in problems abroad.
Oh nice.
Yeah. And there's a lobbyist group. An ex-copper that runs to try and get ritual abuse shown as an actual offence. So he's approached me to see if I want to meet with Keir Starmer in a couple of weeks. So
that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, things have got to quite a good level now,
When you think of missing people in this country, 3 people immediately spring to mind for me. It's Keith Bennett, Nicola Bulley, and Madeline McCann. Obviously, Keith Bennett is dead. Sadly, we don't know where Keith Bennett is. Nicola Bulley, we know what happened to her. She died. And then there's Madeline McCann, who, out of the 3, I would say is probably the most well-known missing person, probably in the world, I'd say. Now, I've done lots of work on the Moors murders with John Kilbride's brother, Terry Kilbride, all of which can be found on this channel. And obviously, I've done a lot of work on the Nicola Bulley case as well, most notably the interview with Peter Falding. Both these cases are in their own playlists on the channel, so go and check them out if you're interested. Now, John, I've seen you talk about Madeline McCann quite a lot on other podcasts and different channels, so like James English, you've discussed it on James English. Sean Atwood, you're regular in Sean's channel, aren't you?
Yeah, I've been on 6 times.
And also, most notably for this video, it was when you was on the John Cooper show. What I noticed is something that you said on that channel, right? And it doesn't appear to have been probed very much by the interviewer. He kind of just skipped past it. You said the following on the John Cooper show. I'm going to quote you here. Funnily enough, I did know someone that was on it referring to the case. And I can remember that she told me, she said, because she was out there in Portugal, John, the mum killed her. The mum killed her. Gave her tablets. So that came from someone who is in that, as in that case. And she said the Portuguese police knew it. Now, that interviewer replied with, why would they give her drugs? Just to knock her out? And I'm thinking, like, that's not the real question here. For me, the question is, why would the police cover that up and not act upon that information? And to quote again, the Portuguese police knew, regards to Kate McCann killing Maddie, why would they allow the world to believe that she'd simply gone missing? So can you talk to me more about when you said that, like where that, like what involvement or intel do you have regards to this case? Did you just know someone who worked on it? Is that where the above quote came from? Can you tell us more about that? Because that's massive when I heard it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm aware, I don't think the Portuguese police have covered anything up. I think it's the British police that seem to have gone out their way, and the British police have gone out of their jurisdiction as well. What jurisdiction of any of the British police got to go out there only in the capacity of family liaison? It's a Portuguese investigation. It's nothing to do with the Commonwealth. It's nothing to do with an overseas British territory. It's a totally different judicial system. It's a Napoleonic law system. It's not a common law system. What jurisdiction? I'm still to this day at a loss as to why they're even out there, other than to assist if they have information which bolsters up the suspects, the police claim against the suspects. Maybe there is intelligence that the McCanns have done this before and they've gone out there to help with that, or that, like I said, as a family liaison. Now, I knew a woman, and I'm not going to betray her by naming her or
I wouldn't expect that.
narrowing it down so far that can only ever be her. But this was a woman that was brought over there to assist in the investigation. Again, I don't know whether she was assisting the British side or the Portuguese side, but she definitely had an integral role, and she was at the very heart of it in the very early days. This is a woman that worked alongside me on quite a few very, very sensitive child abuse cases. So she was no stranger to child abuse cases. And look, kids die. Some die deliberately, some die accidentally. And with the suspect, everyone is a suspect. Even if it's like what they call a SUDI, a sudden unexplained infant death, or we call them cot death. The parents are still suspects, and they have to be suspects until they are properly eliminated. And they will be subject to investigation. But on the whole, innocent people will assist the police. They will assist the police unless it is a massive stitch up. And it's the police's job to give over what's called disclosure. And you have to give enough disclosure that the suspect can then formulate their defence. It's not the suspect's job to bolster up the case for the police. Let's get that right. It's not the suspect that's got to give information. The police are there to search for the truth, to look to information that goes towards someone or away from them. And if someone decides they don't want to talk, under common law, which is what we have, it's not what Portugal's got, but under common law, we've got presumption of innocence. Portugal's not. Portugal's got presumption of guilt. We have the right of silence. Now, this woman told me...
Are you referring to when Kate McCann refused to answer the questions?
Kate McCann refused to answer many questions. It was...
Over 40, I believe.
Something like... Well, yeah, I thought it was something like 38 questions or something like that.
We're at ballpark figure.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of things that have gone on there that I look into. And this woman said, look, John, it's, and the one... She said the mother killed her. And the one thing she said, the police couldn't believe... not only her arrogance, but she said when you actually deal with a mother, her eyes go black. I remember this woman telling me that. She said she's got them jet black shark eyes.
Wow.
Yeah, which is odd, But when you go on about missing people, look, the Madeline McCann, they've really monopolised on their daughter's death one way or the other. When you see the couple now, they sort of sunk into the background, as it were. Jerry McCann looks exactly the same. Kate looks harrowed. You can see that this has really taken its toll on her. It's my belief that the death was accidental. This is my belief. This isn't no fact or anything like that. The death was accidental. However, I don't think these are clean people at all. And I'm going to share something. People do contact me quite a bit. I have a lot of contact with the girl who claims to be Madeline McCann. This girl called Julia. She sort of contacts me every week. And I've told her, Julia, Madeline McCann's dead. That means if you are her, you should be dead. So I think the girl's got mental health problems myself, and I try and keep it, really placate her every now and then with an answer, but I don't think her story is genuine. When you look at the case of Brian McDermott, his parents weren't brought in and investigated and put through that, and they assisted the police. The same with Moira Anderson and so many others. The McCanns are different in how they behave with law enforcement, and it's weird. And what they've done to try and bolster up their version of the truth, using the pontiff, using the Pope, using Gordon Brown. Now this is interesting. I think people need to try and stick in your mind Gordon Brown for a minute, because he's got a brother called Andrew Brown.
David Blunkett was involved as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, all of them. I mean, and Andrew Brown, people need to look into Andrew Brown and his background and what he'd been involved in. And of course you've got Blunkett and everything else. And look at the extraordinary lengths they went to discredit sort of quite a good evidential lead, and that was with the cadaver dog. The cadaver dog was second to none. It was that good that the FBI took this dog on and made it their top dog.
Is this the dog that smelled like a corpse or dead body in the McCann parents' car?
This dog went
not long after she went missing.
Yeah, prior to that, this dog had a tremendous track record, and it never failed to find something. There's many anomalies around it. What we got to look at is, why are they making such a fuss? And there's that old saying, one does protest too much, and I think we need to apply that with the McCanns. And this birds of a feather saying goes with these people as well. Look at their cohorts that stood with them with total solidarity. Who are these people? Now, there was rumours that the McCanns were swingers. Now, I want to really stick on this, right? Because swinging, like any sort of thing, I think it's perverted. I'm against it. I don't think it's harmless fun at all. And I think it's weird. I mean, what man would take pleasure in watching a load of other men shag his missus? Let's get vernacular about this. And what woman likewise would want to watch her husband do the same to other women? It's weird. If they are into this as middle class people from Middle England, with respectable jobs, they always sort of come this air of British respectability about them, and the connectivity that you've got, especially with Jerry McCann. Right now, I'm going to put this in a theoretical way. Now, your viewers can draw whatever inference they want from this, and hopefully the intelligent ones will draw the right inference. What if a guy who was quite wealthy, that was into swinging, and he had a missus who was highly sexualized? Now, people that tend to be highly sexualized, and let's generalize here, there's a good chance they may have come from childhood sexual trauma, which would cause an over-sexualization of someone.
Yeah.
Okay? It might even make them want to become a bit of a pervert. And the chances of someone who's been abusing their children is higher than someone who's not been abused. Now, in no way am I saying that victims and survivors of child abuse are perverts, and I'm not saying that. And anyone who comes up with that conclusion is an idiot, because that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that those who abuse, most of them have come from abuse. All right, the propensity to abuse is greater. A woman who has been abused has a greater propensity of failing to protect her children from abuse. There's an emotional damage that goes on. The emotional clock has stopped. So let's say, as a theory, that Kate has come from sexual abuse.
Okay.
And that has caused her to be overly sexualized. And let's say that Jerry may have come from an equally sexually dysfunctional background. You're talking about two emotionally broken people. My half-baked theory is this: that when you've got everything you want, and you have come from abuse, and you are with a partner who's equally as damaged as you, and you've got this hypersexualization that your partner can't satisfy, you start getting engaged in this awful part-time hobby of swinging. Right now, you're not going to go to the low market stuff. You're going to get your elite club. You don't want just some old scaffolder turning up with his missus from a housing estate or whatever. Right, you're going to keep it within your own social sort of strata, as it were. So, what if the McCanns then are full-time swingers, which the allegation's been made in the past. I'm only reiterating the allegation that's come.
Where's the allegation? I'm not asking for names, but is it a credible allegation?
Again, I don't know. I don't know if it's journalistically it will hold water.
Okay.
However, I'll come to that in a minute, right? But it's been mentioned to me that these people were swingers. It's been mentioned to me again. Would that person testify in court or whatever? I don't know. But there's a world of difference between intelligence and evidence.
Yeah.
The police work on intelligence. Journalists have to work on evidence. In order to prosecute, you need evidence. You can't just go on intelligence. Intelligence won't prosecute, but it will instigate an investigation which could bring about the evidence. Now, what if someone approached me and they said, John, I know these two are swingers because I go to a swingers, or used to go to a swingers party where they were there.
Yeah.
And I'd seen them there. And I've had sex with Kate, for example.
Yeah.
And her husband's had sex with my missus. Not just me, many people. And they're bang up for it all the time. And then what if, theory again, what if this person says, look, you want to look at who was in government at the time? Because a couple of MPs, they were there. Well, what if the Prime Minister's brother might or might not have been there, right, at these parties, and regular attendees? And what if this guy said to me that in the upstairs room, that the kids would be brought, Kate would bring her kids, and she would medicate them, and they would go to sleep, and they were just left there in the room asleep while everyone was downstairs shagging, fornicating, whatever, orgying, whatever it is. But also some other people had to bring their kids because they couldn't get babysitters or whatever it might have been. And Kate was.
Are you thinking that it's possible that Maddie might have been? I don't know how to word this. It's quite.
Sexually abused.
Yeah, you said it. Yeah, sexually abused in prior deluge.
We could run that theory, and I'll come on to that in a minute. The party would be run by, organised, maybe by a couple who might or might not have been later exposed to the press. Now, I might be releasing some information to one of these podcast channels at some point, and it might show a couple who were swinging party organisers and did get exposed by a national newspaper, right? This might be connected, it might not be, but again, I wouldn't mention it maybe if it wasn't. It's all hypothesis, the whole thing, right? Now, what we're looking at now is this quiet little, Mediterranean holiday resort, out of season, and they lock their kids in a room, infant kids. Now, firstly, what decent-minded parents would ever leave not just Maddie age, but the younger ones, the twins.
Were they like not even two?
They were
around that mark, weren't they?
Yeah, they were infants. I mean, you've got to be wrong in the head, and not only that, it's illegal.
Yeah,
it's illegal. Now there's a part of our justice system that says if a British citizen commits a crime abroad that would be an arrestable offence in the UK, they can face trial for it in the UK.
Okay.
So they could have faced trial for child abandonment because that's what they did. They abandoned these little defenceless children. Anything could have happened.
And they did this every night as well.
It's wrong. And bear in mind, this is a country that's child friendly. They had
Portugal.
They could have, they could have wined and dined, during the day with all the family. They could have taken the kids to the restaurant, and then they could have all come back to their balcony or whatever and had a drink. They didn't need to leave the kids. And then they had this checking-in system. Well, what total nonsense! It's nonsense. Look, the chances of a transient predatory paedophile being in the area, coming across what they must have thought was heaven, you know, a home alone little kid and two toddlers, but not only that, not going through the normal method of entry via the front door, climbing through, a partially opened window, and then exiting with the kid through that partially open window.
No one hears a fucking thing.
Look, listen, look. You try picking up a Jack Russell dog that doesn't want to be picked up.
Yeah,
You know, it ain't going to happen, is it?
I thought the same thing about this.
And people come out of these theories that this person was here, this person. I'm telling you now, they will never ever convict anyone of that death, never. And I said this years ago. I said this about 4 years ago to Sean Atwood, and then someone contacted me and said, "Look, they've got a guy." I said, "No, it's nonsense. This guy that they nicked, he knew them anyway. What if he's part of their swinging group back in the UK? What if?
Okay.
What if he is? You know?" And they've just look. It's like a secret society. That the official narrative doesn't make sense, but if the girl is got a huge amount of residual, some sort of dopamine in her, some sort of sedative in there, and then she is in a state of in and out of this bizarre hinterland of when you just wake up, you're just asleep, you don't really know what's going on. And maybe she's climbed up to look out to find out where mummy and daddy is, and she's fallen and something terrible's happened. Maybe she's broken her neck. Maybe something like that has happened. Now, my theory is this. I don't think the night they said she went missing that it happened. I think it happened the day before. I think that the body had already been gone, and they staged this whole thing. They staged it all.
Sorry, let me just jump in there, right? So, do you believe that her death, however it came about, let's theorize that she's dead, because we don't know as a fact that she is.
No.
Let's theorize that she's dead. So, if she died, whether it was on purpose, whether she was sedated, whether she, like you said, she accidentally slipped, broke a neck, hit her head, whatever. If that happened the day before, what's your theory as to why they would say it happened on the 3rd? Is that to give themselves a day of story?
And then they can. I think it was hugely traumatic, especially for Kate. They've had time to compose themselves. They've had the most important thing: dispose of that body. See, Kate and Jerry would be qualified to pronounce life extinct, right?
Yeah, they're both doctors, aren't they?
Yeah, see, this is the important thing. They can pronounce life extinct. So all the telltale signs of extinction of life, they can recognise. So they were quite happy that the child is dead. Get the grips of it. Now let's get rid of it, right? So they call in the favours. This is maybe where these who's that? The Freud family came in. It's my opinion that the body is probably had been dismembered and chucked at sea onto a rocky coastline or sunk into the water or something like that. Water destroys DNA, especially the sea, the salt water.
Salt water, yeah.
And the salt water, it's full of predators. It's absolutely full of, and it's got tide, and the tide is just going to wash everything out. You're not going to trawler a rocky coast. It's a very rocky coast there. You can't set your trawling nets down, right? On that's really for sort of flat, sandy. So the chances of the infant's corpse being caught up in a trawling net pretty non-existent. All you've got to do is weigh that body down and then pull it down on a rocky coast. And your only risk is maybe scuba divers, but again, pull it deep enough and you're pretty much not really going to get your sports divers going now.
This
The
day is
predators will
giving
eat
them.
it.
I was going to just saying then, like this one day, let's say it was the second, because obviously the 3rd of May is when she disappeared. If they'd got rid of Maddie on the 2nd of May, the day before, in the way that you have hypothesized, out to sea, dismembered, which would be a good way to dispose of the body. Like I said, the marine life would be a big one. It's not nice to talk about, but if she was dismembered, she's in smaller parts, the marine life she'd be gone fairly quickly. So if this scenario, if we're to take this to be, let's just run with this for a moment. They've had 24-hour head start on any kind of search, so that would make sense as to why there's on the 3rd of May, there's no sign of her.
Yeah,
anywhere, because she's long gone.
Yeah, and then you brief your friends. You brief your friends, you sync everything up. The guy does go and check on the room. He goes and checks, and people have seen him checking it. So you're building up your credibility all the time. You're building it all up. And then, but I think the police were smack on. I think they did the right thing. But these crazy theories that are coming out, that there's this transient paedophile from Germany, then it's gone out to Australia and everything else, and then sightings in Morocco. The police have to follow these up. Now, back then, police officers, if they were on duty and they had to follow up an inquiry, so first you have to send out what's called a rogatoire, right, and which is a request with a foreign land to operate in an official capacity there, right?
Yeah.
It's called a conrog, is what we call it. They call it a con something rogatoire. It's a French term, and it's really a unilateral agreement that can we come officially out there and work and not get arrested, right? So they get submitted, and then you get an agreement from the CPS that you go out there. The officers will fly business class because their classes at work, so they'll go on a plane business class, and they will be given a good hotel, probably with sports facilities, and $100 each to spend a day. So if you're in a hotel that's got all inclusive, you're given $100 and that, and you go out to take a statement, and you make it last a week. Well, isn't that quite a good little scam to be running? And then you get another one. Oh, there's sighting in Australia. Who's up for that? The same hands go up, right? Off you go to Australia. I know that this works because I worked in a unit where that would happen. I worked in a vice unit where you had to have your passport and a credit card in your desk at work, because you could come in and be drafted out straight away like that. Boom.
I want to go back to a previous point, which is it's largely what the video is about. It's the big point that I honed in on, that I heard you say on the is it John Cooper, when you said that you were told that the mum Kate killed her, and the Portuguese police know this. I think this is a real important thing that I've not heard spoken about in the press. I've not heard this being spoken about amongst the people. Now, I want to ask you is, if when she said to you that the mum killed her and the police know this, how does, so I'm not going to ask you for the name of the person who told you, but how does she know that the mum killed Maddie? How does she know that? And how do the Portuguese police know?
Well, okay, right. Well, it wasn't a spectator sport, right? So
it's quite a big thing to say, though, isn't it?
Well, of course, because the evidence would indicate that. So this person wasn't in the room and watched it. You're never going to get that privilege. But then that's why police have investigators, because that's their job to get the evidence. So the evidence would be adduced that would indicate that quite strongly, that's what happened. Now, also, you don't know whether or not one of that group become an informant. You don't know that. And maybe that happened. I think that maybe someone has told the truth to the Portuguese police, and it all makes sense.
Sorry, say that again.
I think that someone has in that group has told the truth
within the group of holiday goers with the McCanns, the other families.
I think that someone is appalled.
Then would it come down to the Portuguese police proving it then? Because that's
every case comes down to proving it.
Because that's then just hearsay, isn't it? In court, that's hearsay.
Yeah, but all cases are hearsay.
Yeah, until there's factual evidence.
Look, evidence is only adduced in a court through what they call a Section 9 statement. And that Section 9 is read out. So it's verbalised.
Am I right to think that the Portuguese police, they kind of pulled out of this search sooner than people thought they may have done? They wanted to wash their hands of the search for Maddie. Now, if that's true, do you think that's because that, like we've already established here, the Portuguese police knew? Now, like we've already spoken about, that's not to say they knew as fact. It is more their professional heads. It all leads towards the parents did this. Do you think that they stepped away from this case thinking, well, we kind of know what's happened, we can't prove it, we're taking our resources away? Do you reckon that's a possibility?
This is what happens in all cases. You have to shelve things. No matter how abhorrent now, you have to shelve them. I think the Portuguese police just got so fed up of the British police and the British government and spin doctory that was going on with these people that the McCanns appointed as their spokespeople, who were very well known. The guy they appointed had a huge reputation as being an aggressive, litigious sort of individual anyway. And, false narratives given out, lies given out by them. And then the British government breathing down their neck all the time, protecting the guilty party. I think the Portuguese were pretty much fed up and disgusted with Scotland Yard. And of course, you've got Scotland Yard goes round as this bastion of decency and integrity and of detective excellence. Well, that might have been the case, many years ago, but I think what they saw of them absolutely appalled and shocked them. You're talking about a little coastal enclave which probably hasn't even had a murder in 10 years. And if it did, it's probably a drunken one or a domestic violence one, which is most of them solve themselves anyway. Look, if what we're saying is the truth, right, we don't know, right? None of us were there. Right? If what we're saying is the truth, they would be looking at child abandonment issues. I would have thought the Portuguese legal system, that the statute laws are pretty similar to ours. I wouldn't have thought there's much difference, right? Yeah. They would have been looking at a neglect issue, an abandonment issue, and that would have been it. It was, in my opinion, an accident. And then what they've done is they've just concocted this whole web of lies around it and made it so complicated and tangled that even to this day, it's just a huge toxic mess.
Do you think that the people who were holidaying with, so let's go back to that theory of she died on the 2nd of May, not the 3rd. Do you think that the people that she was holidaying with would have known about it then? Straight away?
But here's the problem. When a child dies in suspicious circumstances, the body, any unexplained death, right? So if a doctor can't account for it, then it goes through what they call a post-mortem system. So the coroner's court kicks in. The coroners take ownership of the body. Coroners supersede the Crown Court. So the courts have a hierarchy. The coronial side of it will preside over the criminal justice side of it. So a coroner will take ownership of the body. There'll be continuity. The police will come in. They will seal that off as a crime scene. They will do all their forensic blah, blah, blah. Now, all forensic means is evidence for a court, right? It's not a science thing. That's forensic science. It's evidence for a court. So wherever you've got a word is preceded with forensic, it means it's part of the court or the coronial system, right? So the police will then, that body will be an exhibit, and at the relevant time, the body will be taken away from the crime scene, and the coroner's office will take ownership of that body. They will sign for it. The body will then go into the undertakers. They will be authorised by the coroner as guardians of that body, and then the body will then be taken before a pathologist. and a post-mortem will take place. If it's a child, if Portugal runs a judicial system akin to that of Great Britain, then that will be what's called an SPM, a special post-mortem. And that will be a real intense 2 solid hours of going through every single piece of that body, right? But they will also examine the genitalia.
To see if any abuse has taken place.
Now,
Wedger.
that may be the deciding point of whether the body stays or goes in this apartment. Because if, and we don't know, but if that child had been sexually abused, that would be visible in the special post-mortem. Now, if that has occurred, then we are looking at social services getting involved. The other children will be looking at them being subject to a paediatric medical, which would be a very intrusive medical in which they would examine the anus and into the vagina and everything else. This is what they would do, because it would indicate that paedophilia is going on within.
As doctors, they would know this, wouldn't they?
Of course, without a doubt. You know, and so
kind of making sense, like the theory, and just to put it out there to anyone that's watching, this is theorizing, this is opinions. No one knows any facts apart from the fact that the girl is not, she's missing, she's not about anymore. But it does, the dots do connect together with this.
What a criminal has to do is distance himself from anything that ties himself to a crime scene. So the police will turn up and there'll be things on a crime scene, right? It's how it works is that evidence is that it's like a field of pure white snow, and anyone who comes onto that crime scene is going to leave an imprint. All right.
Right. Interesting.
And it's the police's job to identify these footprints, who they belong to, and so the more people adulterate a crime scene, the better. This is something we saw with the Giordano case, where the crime scene was so badly adulterated, it was written off.
Right, because there was 20 ambulances that turned up.
Yeah, and then of course if they're double crewed, then you've got 40 people treading in and out, and it's a nightmare. So if this, again, theory, if the young girl died the day before, and she's removed, and she's maybe even put in storage by a trustee, that then gives them a day to rinse that place top to bottom with detergent, with everything else, which can totally strip it. But there's flecks. They found flecks of blood behind the wardrobe. They did find things.
Really?
The dog, the dog picked up on things as well.
You can't trick a dog. That's the thing, isn't it?
No. Well, they see what they had to do. Right now, there's a very well-known barrister, right? QC. He's now probably a KC, Queen's Counsel now, King's Counsel, right? Called Michael Mansfield. Now, he's a very aggressive, dogmatic, highly successful barrister. He represented Diana at the Diana inquiry and all this sort of stuff. Now, what his tradecraft is, if he couldn't attack the evidence, the information, he would attack the source of the evidence, the source of the information. So he would then say, right, if a police officer had good evidence, he would then say, well, officer, isn't it true that, years ago you was accused of lying? Isn't it true years ago, you actually come to notice on your discipline record for beating your wife and things like that? So he discredits them. And you see this whenever anyone goes to war, the first thing they do, they have to discredit the enemy, is to make other people hate them. What Kate did, she went out of her way to discredit this dog handler, because this dog handler, what he'd done, he'd put them on the scene. He'd anchored them to the scene.
Ah, right, yeah.
So this dog was the best in the world, right? And this is what they had to do. They had to discredit. So this is why they would get these spin doctors, these very clever, tricky, deceptive, nasty people, in my opinion, to come and to totally discredit the truth and then confuse the whole system. This is why I think the Portuguese just turned around and said, you know what, you've killed your own, get on with it. We don't.
So if
had it been a Portuguese kid, I think it'd have been totally different. But because it was one of their own, I think they got to a point where they just got fed up of them. And can you blame them?
if we're talking about some kind of corruption or some kind of cover up or whatever it may be, then we're not looking at the Portuguese police here.
No.
Right.
No.
Okay. They were just fed up with the shit that they were facing, basically.
Yeah. I just think that it was so clear cut what had happened. But I said if they had
right,
the problem I think may well have been if the body did contain evidence in a post mortem of sexual abuse, then that would have and had that not been the case, then maybe the decision could have been made. Let's deal with it as it is. Let's leave the poor child there. Get the ambulance in, and let the process take its place. And
yeah. So if she had of, let's go back to saying that she'd got up and she'd fell over and hit her head, kind of thing. McCann's found Madeline deceased through neglect, but accidental death, still neglect. Their punishment and their imprisonment wouldn't have been what it would be with child abuse involved. So in that scenario, the body has to be disposed of.
Yeah, and if it gets disposed of in the right way, and then you can rely on the confidence that it's not going to be found.
Even a day though, even one day, were they not out in the water quite? Do you know if they were out in the water, the police searching, or was it more inland?
It's very difficult to search, isn't it, Walter?
So what I suppose the sea is as well.
Yeah. Where do you start? Where do you finish? And if you go down so deep, with land it's different. You can put things called ESDA machines over, and they can radar. Even you can even do them from drones, and it can tell if there's any disruption of the soil and how far down the disruption goes. But with the sea, what can you find? You weigh that body down. You drop that in. You drop that in anywhere up to 30 to 50. If you go to 50 meters of water, you're not going to find recreational divers down there. And if it's rocky, they're not going to trawler it, and it's going to be predated on very, very quickly. And the other thing is you can burn a body. It's only a small child. You hot enough, it's going to soon you reduce down if you burn something. Look, it's something really interesting. Someone said to me, one of my colleagues, when it's come out, it was a woman. She rang me up. She said, "John, what do you think about this McCann thing?" And my colleague, she rang me up. She said, that mum's got something to do with it. And I went, how do you know? She went, she's wearing earrings.
And okay.
I said, yeah, I get you. I get where, and I got where she's coming from.
Because you wouldn't think to make yourself look nice, would you?
Look, I was a family liaison officer for many years, and the girl I worked with was as well. And she went, John, how many families have we dealt with? And she said most of them live in a bottle at the bottom of a bottle. That you don't even eat. They don't brush their teeth. Nothing. They've gone to pieces. If for example, she was a perverted swinger and everything else, for example, and this was an accident, and they've taken these awful moves to protect themselves because of the selfish narcissists that they are. There may well be that maternal side of her that genuinely missed her daughter, genuinely loved her daughter, and genuinely missed it. And I think that may well be the case. And you can see that when you see pictures of her now. Like I said earlier, she looks harrowed. It's definitely taken its toll on him. He doesn't look like he gives a toss.
Right, now let me just jump in there because I wanted to mention something about their interviews. Now, if you look at those two in an interview, she is wearing the face of. She looks to me like she's wearing the face of absolute guilt and burden, right? Whereas he looks like some right. So if someone said to me, right, one of the parents killed her, right? Which one did it? I would put a mortgage on that it was Kate. Accidental or not, I put my mortgage on that it was Kate because of the way that she looks. So guilty and burden ridden. Whereas he looks like he's covering for her. Now, have you noticed that whenever she talks, he dives in?
Yes.
He takes over. He takes control.
I'm glad you mentioned that. coercive, controlling element always kicks in. And also she wrote a book, didn't she? I've not bothered to read it, and I don't think I ever will. But
I don't think I will either.
There's that thing she mentions about the Maddie's genitals.
Yeah, that's
perfectly
fucking
formed
weird, isn't it?
genitals. Well, it's totally inappropriate. I can't see at what context you would ever mention your child's genitals. It just why?
Your child and the word genitals should never be said in the same fucking sentence.
No, I totally and utterly agree.
The person that you knew that worked on the case that said that the mum did it, the police knew. Can you just reiterate again? Is this person, are they credible in your eyes?
Oh yeah, a professional.
Somebody you work with.
Yeah, a professional person who's involved in the evidence gathering process on a criminal justice investigation.
So their opinion, you value their opinion and what they kind of
again,
come out with.
Why? It's a bit like a child who says they've been abused. Why would they lie? Why would they lie? For what? Where was the benefit of lying? There is none. There is no benefit in lying. And again, same with the police judicial in Concalves and his team. At what point would they benefit from perverting justice and corruptly falsifying evidence against the McCanns? There is no benefit to this at all.
In your heart of hearts, do you think that she was killed on purpose? Do you think that she was sedated and then maybe too much and then accidentally killed for more of a, I don't know whether that falls into manslaughter or murder? Or do you believe that there was an accident where, like you said before, I've never thought of this scenario where she's gotten up, she's looked around, where's mummy, where's daddy, fell over. Which of those do you lean towards, just in your opinion?
The third one.
The accident.
The girl was reputed to be in, very hyper, quite tomboyish, so this and very in people's faces. So, for me, that would show when children have a confidence around adults, that can be very unhealthy, because that means that the barriers between a child and an adult stranger have been broken down, which could indicate, for me, I would be looking at abuse. So, when children come up very close to you like this, and they're confident in doing that, I would be worried that child's been abused. And that comes
really?
from,
wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. Unless they know you, and there's that natural, rapport building has gone on. But kids that come right up very close and they're used to that closeness, they're not fazed by a stranger. That would alarm me.
That's really interesting. That like the psychology of abuse and growing up with it and how it changes your character and how it molds you. It's fascinating. You've done what? How many years? How many years in Scotland Yard? Was it 25?
27 and a half.
And how many? How many
27 and a half. So I spent
many years in the child protection kind of unit, if you will?
I did two tours in child protection, and then I also worked in Vice with child prostitution. So I would say collectively about 8 years, and then I went on to specialist interviewing. I continued to interview kids. So probably not short of a decade of intensely dealing with, and then family liaison as well. So, dealing with a trauma, and these are complex. So when you interview a child, it's different to interviewing an adult. So a child and a vulnerable person, your interview skills have to be absolutely excellent, and you can't afford to mess up. So the best interviewers, suspect and victim interviewers, are child protection officers. They are brilliant. There's only one way to get information out of someone, and that's be very intelligent and be very kind. And with kids, you'll only ask them 4 questions. Tell me, explain, describe, and show. Okay. Tell me, explain, describe, show. That's all you tell them. They're open questions. They're not leading questions. You cannot lead a child. If you lead a child, children naturally acquiesce. They will say what they think you want to hear. They want to please you.
So that's why it's important to never lead.
Never lead.
Clever.
And you keep the questions very open. You know, you don't say, "Can you tell me?" Because the answer will be, "Yes, I can." Right? You say, "Tell me," and then they'll tell you.
How long's the training? How long is the training for this?
It never
Must be
stops. It
quite
never
slow.
stops. Yeah, initially you're sort of on probation for about a year, but it never stops. It just continues and continues, and um, any slight deviation from that interview stance, your interview will be thrown out. Will and the defence they have and also when you deal with these cases, any officer or any civilian that's involved must be child protection trained, right?
Yeah.
What they call SOIC trained, sexual offences investigation, and they have to be vetted and they have to be psychometrically tested, right? Because you have to be mentally stable in order to do it. So even if you're dealing with cases and you get a civilian that's a fingerprint expert or a civilian or an interpreter, for example, you might need an interpreter. They have to be a SOIC trained interpreter, right? You can't, and they
Interesting.
have to be vetted. So it's a real specialist skill. And you watch a lot of verbal, you watch a lot of non-verbal. You see how kids react, and when you're dealing with a suspect, what you look for is openers because they're going to make no comment, and your job is to get them to talk. So your job with a witness is to get them on board, make them comfortable, and get them to talk that way, right? With open questions. With a suspect, you've got to antagonize them and get them to talk and lose it, right? And you do that by looking for openers, and you monitor people's value system. You'll monitor what they wear, what jewelry they got on, if they smoke. There's all these little things that are all important in you trying to find an opening, a chink in their armor. With broken, damaged people, they will not have a mental maturity that's compliant with their age. Right. So someone who's emotionally broken, they might be an adult, they might be 40 years old, for example, but they've got the emotional stability of a 5-year-old, and they might have a value system of a child as well. Look at how Will Smith behaved when he slapped like a woman. He slapped, man. I don't care what his
When he slapped,
explanation
what do you
was.
mean when he slapped Chris Rock?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
a child losing it, and he was behaving very effeminate as well, with the slap and the screaming like a very broken child.
Biggest mistake of his life, that was.
Man, he know what he's done. He's shown the real him.
Yeah. First time you've seen he was so well loved as well, wasn't he?
Right. So I interviewed the mother of the little boy that was murdered, Baby P. Now I interviewed the mother, and again she was a highly controlling individual. She had to show the world because of the narcissism in her that how brilliant she was. Right? I'm a good mother. I implement the naughty step. I do this. I take a toy away when he's naughty. I this. The fact of the matter is, she was torturing her son, and she was getting her boyfriend to torture her son. They were even getting the dog to torture the boy, right?
Fucking hell.
And she was getting pleasure out of this because she's a horrible, twisted, sadistic individual. What I had to do was I had to build her trust. And with narcissism, let them be in control, right? Don't do this up the ladder thing. Let them be in control, okay? Let them dig their own grave. And then you bring in the challenge. And you know that the moment you bring in a challenge, that relationship is broken. And you're going to see it. So the moment I challenged her, which I left to the last knockings of the interview should have been split. You know, we have this ratio that we would use, you know. And the moment I did that, I saw this monster. And that is a monster that the child would have seen.
Yeah.
Now, if you watch Kate, she has got this similar anger and hatred in her. When she interviews people, she sneers, she mocks, she's got this supercilious superiority issue about her, and she hates anyone going against, you know, that. She even cusses some of her dissenters. You know,
It makes you wonder what she might be like when there's no cameras there, doesn't it?
if I was anyone, I would seriously look into whether they are or are not involved in swinging. When you're a family liaison officer and you're dealing with the families of murder victims, right? There's an old adage: you must study how a man lives to know how a man dies. Now that will be the same with the murderers. Study how they live. How did they live before this? What were they involved in before this? That will give you a massive insight into who these people really are. Not look at what they are subsequently. Every time they're on the telly, they are immaculately presented, like they're trying to show off something to themselves. I pick up a real sexualized vibe off of Kate. What that's got to do with anything, I don't know. But
What do you get from Jerry?
I think he's a very nasty individual. I think he's very cold, very calculated, and I would say he's a very, very well connected man. And whether that connection comes from secret societies, from maybe if he is or isn't involved in swinging or something like that, I would say he's an incredibly well connected man, and I'd say a very capable man as well. I would say there's an underlying anger in this guy.
You don't believe that Maddie was abducted and that they are looking for their daughter how many years on? 2007, 17 years later.
And elite paedophile rings, of course, they like an elite paedophile ring is nothing new, you know. And the fact that they know Clement Freud, of course, there's been allegations made against the Freud family anyway, and their father was Sigmund Freud was into some very perverse and bizarre stuff involving theories around paedophilia anyway. So they're twisted people. I would say the Freuds would probably come from intergenerational naughtiness. So the fact that they knew them, that's not really a surprise. The Podesta brothers, again, if they are there, living there, and they're not nice people, well, it's like gangsters. They all know each other. If you went down 1970s to Marbella, the Costa del Sol, all them gangsters would be drinking together. The South Londoners with the North Londoners, with the Northerners, with the Belfast, well, they'd all be drinking together anyway. So it's not surprising that they know each other, and maybe they chose that resort because it was Club Pedo together, Pedo FC were all gathered down there, but this abducting and taking and running off to Morocco and all that, I'd say absolute nonsense. Look, when you're investigating,
you believe that Kate and Jerry know what happened?
Yeah, definitely. And
do you think she'll ever be found?
No, I don't think the body will ever be found. No, I don't think they'll ever find the body. I don't think anyone will ever stand trial ever for this murder. I've been saying this all along, and there's been about 3 new reinvestigations into it. A massive waste of police money. Why is there 70 million or whatever it is? It's absolutely ridiculous. The simplest explanation is usually the correct one. Keep it simple. I think that they brought in all these people because they're all part of their dirty little pervy club that they've just called favours in. They've all got dirt on each other. There's probably all footage of each other doing all sorts of weird things, and I think anyone who knew what was going on has either been paid off.
They've got enough money, haven't they?
Out of that 17 million paid off, or they've been threatened. Let's just pray that one of this group, they have the same, that they cannot take this to their grave. They know it's wrong. They want redemption. They want the truth coming out. No matter how much they've been paid, it's not enough to save their soul. Let's hope and pray that occurs in the mighty name of Jesus, and the truth gets out there. And I think that's the only way we will ever know the truth with this. But
I think that's a really good place to kind of wrap that up. There is that there is if the theories and what a large percentage of the population believe is that the Jerry and Kate do know what happened. The only way that we can get some truth is if one of them does come forward. So there is, let's face it, we're probably never going to find a body, but we could get some kind of truth, a little bit of redemption down the line if, like you said, one of them can step forward. I just want to end on a question. This is just for you, John. It's not about the Madeline case. So I've got a lot of respect for the fact that you do go around on certain channels and podcasts, and you speak out and you say things that not many people would basically dare to say. You obviously are a man of integrity. You're a man that you've got morals, and you've seen things, and you've seen things you like, and you've seen things you don't like, and you'll speak up where you need to speak up. You are a self-confessed whistleblower, and you've publicly spoken out about quite a few controversial subjects that others wouldn't dare to do. Does it ever worry you that like, you know, the powers that be, that you speak out? And have you ever been backed off from speaking?
Yeah, many times, because I was threatened by a very senior detective that I would be so-called thrown to the wolves, and that I would lose my home, my job, my children. Now that was a threat that did last a couple of years, and then
Fox up that.
it was only when two of the vulnerable children were found dead that I spoke out. So it is serious. I have been contacted twice by the intelligence services. On one occasion, they did, say your feet are on the line, don't cross over it. I've been contacted by what's called the SIS, which is the go-between between the police and MI5, MI6. I had a long conversation with them. They've told me to take certain bits of my Facebook channel down, and they've told me to not organise protests. And if I did, I would probably face imprisonment. I was told by the Minister of Policing that had he not stood by me, that I would probably be dead now. He said that in front of the Home Secretary, in front of members of the Home Office. And after doing that, he was removed from his ministerial position as Minister for Policing and Crime. So
well, that's something.
Yeah. And I sat down with an ex-Special Forces guy who basically told me how contracts are carried out, and that this guy had carried out contracts on government levels abroad. And so, yes, I have on many occasions. In order for the triumph of evil, in the words of Sir Edmund Burke, it takes but for good men to do nothing. So I'm one of them people who's not prepared to do nothing. I spoke out and I did something. I paid a massively heavy price, and I did. I succeeded in one way, and my career was cut short. In many other ways, I would have a lot more if I hadn't spoke out. But my integrity and my morals wouldn't allow that. They told me to speak out. So do everything right, do the right way. It can be a long journey, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
That's a perfect ending, John. We're clearly both believers in seeking the truth and for speaking out. So again, I want to thank you for coming onto the channel for the second time to talk about what's a controversial subject. Very much appreciate it, and I hope to have you back on again in the not too distant future, and we'll talk about another controversial subject.
And again, everything I've said is an hypothesis. It's my theory. Yeah. I weren't there. I don't know what happened. So
that's it. I'll say it as well. Like, whatever we've spoken about on this video, these are opinions. It's critical thinking. We're not saying that anything is fact. It's just everyone's allowed an opinion. Everyone's entitled to one. You've got one. I've got one. Some of ours actually differ slightly in the case, but generally we're kind of on the same kind of wavelength with the case. So thank you for coming on the channel. Thank you to everyone that has watched. Please subscribe to the channel. Comment down below on what you think about this fascinating case, which has spanned for over 17 years now. Share the video. Thank you, John. Thank you to the viewers. We'll speak soon, and peace out to everyone else.
God bless.